To all of the girls, gays, guys, and ghouls. My name is Autumn, and I am thrilled to be your host of the now third ever FanGirls Jeopardy. So I did make a little catalog so we can keep track of all the Jeopardies we get to do together. Let's see. Starting out, Mean Girls. That was so fetch. And then our speed round with Miss Ariana Grande. And let's see what is in store for today. Though you may have already guessed, it is BeetleJuice. That's right, we're celebrating the 1988 cult classic. But we'll have plenty of time to be talking about the movie during the game, so what are we waiting for? Let's get into the rules and the categories. Here are the game rules. There's a total of 6 categories with 5 clues in each of them. You'll have about 5 seconds given after each clue for you to answer, starting with 200-point clues given first, then progressively harder into the 400, 600, and so on rounds. There is a Final Jeopardy clue at the end, so stick around for that. Keep track of your scores or just play for fun. Here lies BeetleJuice. 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 Yes, there he is. The ghost with the most, babe. All right. Well, it is showtime. What do you say we go over these categories and get this game started? And up first is Showtime. This is just a miscellaneous category about the movie. Then, Finish the Line. Strange and Unusual, just like Lydia. We'll take a look behind the scenes of the movie, followed up by The Living, and of course, The Deceased. We are starting with the 200-point rounds first. So up first, Showtime, 200. This is the fictional town the movie is set in. It's set in Winter River, Connecticut. So they never actually say the town name in the movie, although I could be wrong. But I did find this photo, and the firehouse at the rear is actually somebody's private home garage. The set designers then renovated it to look like the local town firehouse. And next up in our 200-point round, Finish the Line. Go ahead, make my blank. Make my millennium. Spoken by BeetleJuice himself. Moving on to Strange and Unusual for 200 points. Lydia Dietz finds this useful guide in the attic. And of course, that guide being the Handbook for the Recently Deceased. Now, taking our first look at behind the scenes for 200. Tim Burton jokingly offered this as an alternate title for the film. Scared Sheetless. Warner Brothers eventually bought the movie, and originally they wanted to title it House Ghosts. So then Tim Burton threw in his joking idea as to call it Scared Sheetless. Although both of those are pretty good, I think they nailed it with just sticking to BeetleJuice. Bringing down the board, we'll take a look at The Living for 200. Delia Dietz is played by this actress, also known from the Christmas classic Home Alone. Catherine O'Hara, and she is iconic in this movie. Now, on to our last clue in the 200-point round, The Deceased. To summon BeetleJuice, you must say his name this many times. You have to say his name 3 times. Let's bring the board back down to start our 400-point round with Showtime. The Maitlands have a Volvo car in this color. Yellow. Next up, finish the line for 400. If you don't let me get out this house and make it my own, I will go insane and I will blank 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 blank. And I will take you with me. Moving on to Strange and Unusual for 400. The ghosts captured by Lydia's camera are missing these body parts in the photos. No feet. Taking another look behind the scenes for 400 points. Burton's first choice for the title role was this Rat Pack member. Burton's first choice was Sammy Davis Jr., before producer David Geffen suggested Michael Keaton for the role. Keaton actually turned it down, saying he wished he could do it and that Burton seems like a really nice, creative guy, but he just doesn't get it. Despite having the reservations, Keaton met with the director 2 more times and his interest was piqued enough to take the role. Next up, The Living for 400. Cousin of Barbara, Jane Butterfield has this occupation. She's a real estate agent, and a very pushy one at that. Now we'll finish off the 400-point round with The Deceased. Before realizing they had passed, this character's fingertips catch fire by the fireplace. That character was Barbara Maitland. This was one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. Moving on to our 600-point round. First up, back to Showtime. BeetleJuice uses this candy bar to lure over a fly. If you said Zagnut, go ahead and give yourself some points. Next up in our 600-point round, can you finish the line? Want a cigarette? No thanks. I'm trying to blank blank blank. Adam says no thanks, to which he replies, I'm trying to cut down myself. On to Strange and Unusual for 600. A deleted scene from the film explains why Lydia is able to see the dead. So Lydia could see the dead because she herself was not afraid of death. Unlike the other living characters who ignored their immortality. From the handbook, it mentions live people ignore the strange and unusual. When we then get Lydia's iconic line, I myself am strange and unusual. Taking another look behind the scenes for 600. Though the film is set in the fictional town of Winter River, exterior shots were filmed here. In East Corinth, Vermont, So all of the exterior shots that we see throughout the movie, like their home and going to the hardware store around town, so on and so forth, was filmed in Vermont. All of the interior shots were filmed at Culver Studios in California. Bringing the board back down, moving on to the living for 600. Attempting to perform a seance, this character reads the wrong incantation that begins an exorcism ritual on the Maitlands. You guessed it, Otho. Even though he has a slight paranormal background, I would trust Otho maybe with my home decor and furnishings, but definitely not to summon a ghost in my house. That's just me personally, though. On to our last clue in the 600-point round, the deceased. Smoke often blows out of the slit on the neck of this character. That would be the Maitland's caseworker, Juno. All right, everyone, we are over halfway through. Moving on to the 800-point rounds. First up, showtime. These creatures in the netherworld serve as a reference from Frank Herbert's sci-fi novel, Dune. Those creatures, the sandworms. And how amazing that Barbara got to ride them. Next up, finish the line for 800. It obviously doesn't do any good to pull off your heads in front of people if they blank, blank, blank. If they can't see you. These are words spoken by Juno. Now, strange and unusual for 800. Lydia is seen riding her bike home from this school. She goes to Miss Shannon's school for girls. Let's bring the board down because we're taking another look behind the scenes for 800 points. Michael Keaton improvised this percentage of his lines. %90 of them. We already know Michael Keaton is an iconic actor, but to learn that he ad-libbed 90% of his lines, I was blown away. That much more iconic in this role. Now, back to the living for 800 points. Editor for Ballantine Books, Otho compared this character to the Wicked Witch of the West. That character, Beryl. So, to be fair, this is kind of like a trick question worded on my behalf, although I did not mean to. So give yourself a point for this one anyways. But to be fair, he does say, don't mind her, she's still upset somebody dropped a house on her sister. So tit for tat, give yourself the point. Moving on to the last 800-point clue, in the deceased. This netherworld receptionist would have reconsidered her little accident if she knew she'd be a civil servant in the afterlife. The iconic Miss Argentina. Otho also mentions how if you off yourself, you become a civil servant in the afterlife, which explains the receptionist, Juno, so on and so forth in the netherworld, but gets me very curious about BeetleJuice then? Because he himself is a civil servant. So I need to dig into that backstory just a little bit more. The time has come for our 1,000 point round, starting up with showtime. When first seeing Adam's town model, this insect climbs over the top. A spider, and clearly he does not have a fear of spiders. On to finish the line for 1,000. You can't scare her. She's sleeping with blank blank tonight. Prince Valium. Spoken by Lydia. Words of wisdom. On to strange and unusual for 1,000 points. Lydia's reward for her school grades is a levitated dance to this Harry Belafonte song. Jump the line. We all know it. I would have been an A+ student on every math test if this was how I was being celebrated. Come on. Now let's take our last look at behind the scenes for 1,000 points. Tim Burton put many Easter eggs in the movie, including this character on top of BeetleJuice's merry-go-round. Jack Skellington. So Jack is a character that Tim Burton has been drawing since 1982. He made the cameo in this movie and eventually becomes the Jack Skellington we all know and love from Nightmare Before Christmas. Next up, our last look at the living for 1,000. Besides his obvious love for architecture, this is a hobby of Charles Dietz. If you said bird watching, give yourself some points. And now our very last clue on the board, the deceased for 1,000 points. First seen in the Netherworld rating room, this is the name of the shrunken head guy. Harry the Hunter. The tiny shrunken head man does have a name, and it is Harry the Haunted Hunter. He was actually one of the many action figure dolls to be released in 1989. All right, all of you ghouls and goblins, the time has come for, you know it, Final Jeopardy. Tally up the points that you've earned thus far throughout the game, or if you haven't been keeping track of them, to heck with it. We're just having fun here anyways, right? Here is the Final Jeopardy clue. In 1989, BeetleJuice won the Academy Award for this category. For Best Makeup and Hairstyling, made out to Robert Short, V. Neal, and Steve Laporte. They are all very deserving of that specific award for this film, in my opinion. So, hats off to them. Also, hats off to Tim Burton, the crew, everybody that worked on this amazing film because it truly is so iconic and it's held up all of these years. I cannot wait to see the second movie coming soon, and if you're going to be celebrating by throwing your own little BeetleJuice get-together or party with your friends, be sure to head over to fangirlshop.com. Party printables with a fangirl twist. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss out on these. Until I see you next time, toodles! We did that shit. Hey fangirls, don't let the fun stop here. Play our BeetleJuice inspired and other themed party games now at fangirlshop.com. Please make sure to like this video if you had fun, subscribe to our channel so you never miss our weekly Jeopardy episodes, and comment below what theme you would want to see next. Thank you so much for playing. Bye!